Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I hope the traffic wasn't too bad. I heard there were simultaneous accidents on 65. That sucks. I'm Jay Klein. I'm the president of Watkins College of Art, which is where you are, in an actual art studio, which is pretty cool. And I just want to take a minute to welcome you. If you don't know, Watkins is a newcomer to Nashville. We've only been here for 133 years. We were founded to promote and assist the education of the citizens of Nashville in business, like typing, English as a second language, GEDs, and over those 133 years, we evolved into a fine arts college, offering undergraduate and graduate degrees in the visual and fine arts. So that's really cool. I'm almost done, don't worry. But I want you to know, since you're here, and maybe you're here for the first time, that we still have a robust community education program where it's mostly art directed, but we do entrepreneurship classes and things like that. We do them all through the year, fall, spring, and summer semester, so take a look at it. We have a film screening with Nashville Public Television. We're always doing that kind of stuff, and it's always free. We have an art gallery, so don't be a stranger, especially if you live up here. Come by and see us. Look at some paintings. We have two beautiful shows, graduate shows, in the gallery now. And with that, welcome again. I'm done. Have a great workshop, presentation, evening. Thank you.
Thank you, President Klein. All right, I'm going to kick it off tonight. Thank you for being here, doing business with Metro. You're all here because you want to learn how to become vendors with Metro, right? All right, just making sure. There's a great film screening down the hall if it's not. I just wanted to take a minute and recognize that you all own small businesses, and this is a dedication of your time. So I really appreciate you being here. I'm hopeful that you will have some great takeaways from tonight, and you won't be shy about asking questions. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I'm Audra Ladd. I am Mayor Briley's Creative Economy Manager, and within our Economic and Community Development Division. And my role in the mayor's office is to keep the pulse of the 14,000 plus small businesses that are operating in Nashville. We work in partnership with the BAO, Business Assistance Office, which you're going to hear from pretty soon. But I just wanted to let you know who I am and what I did. Tonight's workshop is really important because we're pending the outcome of May 1. We are about to have the largest economic stimulus in the history of Nashville. All right, $5.4 billion is going to enter our economy for transit. That, and we have a soccer stadium planned. Now, we have many, many, many other projects besides those, but those two large projects are crystallizing for us why we really need to be focusing on you and helping you grow your business, helping you become vendors with us, helping you become certified, or getting you to resources to certify. So I just want to also, May 1 is the vote. Mayor Barry and now Mayor Briley's support of the development and growth of women, minority, and veteran-owned businesses is a key component of our economic development strategies overall. Increasing Metro's amount of money we spend and the number of contracts with those businesses is very important, and that's really why we're all here, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're moving toward increasing contracts, increasing amounts of money. We recognize there's work to do. We had some listening sessions leading up to this, so we recognize that there's work to do, and we need your input and partnership to help us. So please don't think of this as the only conversation that we're going to have. This is just the first one that we're having. Hopefully it's not even the first one. It's just the first one on this topic that we've had. But I really want you to stay engaged. I'm going to leave it with our goals for tonight for you. When you leave tonight, I would love it if you could, one, clearly understand how to become a vendor, how to register with Metro. Two, how the Business Assistance Office can help you prepare and respond to a bid. Three, the process and benefits of becoming certified as a minority or women-owned business or disabled veteran-owned business. And four, what your immediate next steps are as a business to begin working with Metro. So I'd like to now turn it over to Javal And do you want me to?
No, I
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Again, as Audra stated, my name is Jerval Watson. I'm the Business Development Officer for the City of Nashville. I work in the Procurement Department, also considered BAO. They work collectively together. I do want to talk to you a little bit about, Audra has provided a great opening in terms of what we'll be learning today. But here's just a little bit more in-depth information. I will be talking to you about the iSupplier registration and effective use of Bob. Excuse me. Brian Gleason, who is the BAO manager, will be talking to you about how the Business Assistance Office can support you as a business owner, as well as the process and benefits of certification. I'm going to kind of segue a little bit. If I could everyone in here tell me if they are or not? Who in here is currently registered to do business with Metro? Great, we have some opportunity in the room because there's all hands did not go up. Who in here is currently certified to be as a minority business or a woman-owned business? Again, there's great opportunity in the room for us to share this information. So already we currently understand and know that there is opportunity in the room for you to leave here with some go-to things to do to ensure that you have the best possible chance of doing business with Metro. After Mr. Gleason gets done talking to you about the process and benefits of certification, Ms. Michelle Lane, who is the purchasing agent, will talk to you about understanding the purchasing process. It is vital for you to understand how to go through that process so that you can make sure that you have the most viable bid when you are bidding on solicitations for Metro, as well as tips for responding to solicitations. She's going to give you a wealth of information that you will leave here and feel empowered to bid. I'm going to be looking for each and every one of you to bid in the future with us. And then last but not least, key takeaways. So I'm sure, like most of us, we've had a busy day today. And as the day dwindles down a little bit, let's do a little icebreaker. We have so few spaces in between us, but what I would like you all to do, if you could turn to your neighbor, introduce yourselves, your business, and what that business is. Let's take about 3 minutes to do so. If you could do that, please, so that we can get to know each other in the room. I see a few of you that introduced yourself. Do not hesitate to introduce yourself to one more person while we take this time. Yes, sir? Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, sir? If you could begin to wrap those introductions up, I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now, what I would like for you to know and understand, the purpose of that icebreaker is that not only do we want you to do business with Metro, but everybody in this room can do business with each other. Don't ever hesitate, please, to think that you only want to do business with major corporations, major entities, government entities. somebody in here has something that you need for your entity. So don't ever hesitate to make that connection. Networking is vital, and we want to make sure that we help do whatever we can to help build that business capacity. Again, thank you for your participation. So, first things first, as I asked, there are a number of people in this room that are not currently registered to be a vendor with Metro government. I would like to invite you and ask you to please do so. Now, what's important for you to know is, please do not think this is labor intensive. It is not. It takes about, I think we've determined 12 to 15 minutes. Kind of gauging upon, it depends upon the person. I always say you can do it during your lunch when you eat half of your sandwich. So for those of you that are not currently registered with us, we definitely would like to have you registered. So it is important that every supplier is registered with us. You cannot do business with the city if you're not registered with Metro government. We want you as a supplier. You may want us, but we want you more than you want us. The more suppliers we have to do business with, the better it is for us. There's a link here that states where you go to be registered for iSupplier. The easy, quick, and dirty way to know how to get there is go to nashville.gov. In the top right-hand corner, if you type in the search box, iSupplier registration, it will take you directly there. Again, 15 minutes. You can do, I've had some people in some of my trainings do it while the training was taking place. You need, the important components is, what I would like to say is this is what it looks like. If you're not here and you don't see this, you're in the wrong place. So make sure that you see this page. This is where you want to go. As you can see, it's very simple. This is the first page of iSupplier registration. You'll go into a little further to put your address information in, how you want to be paid, things of that nature. But again, quick and dirty. These are some key points to remember when you're registering with Metro. Your username is your email address, so that never changes. Your password you will create, we won't know, but as I said, your email is your username. So just always make sure that you use your business entity's email address. Second, you want to make sure you have your basic business information on hand. Your EIN number, the address you want to have listed. Make sure that whatever contact information you put down is accurate, because that is how suppliers will reach out to you to do business, as well as Metro. Okay, so we encourage our primes to do business with each other, our subs to do business with each other, to partner up. If they can't reach you, they can't do that. So make sure that your information is accurate all the time. I like to tell people to check it periodically, because things change. You have employees change and things of that nature, so don't ever hesitate to check that information. It is vital. Make sure you select the proper products and services code. Now, what you need to know is that don't assume what industry codes we're using. Everybody uses different industry codes. I'm sure as a business owner, you're familiar with that if you're registered with any certifying entity. They have it available in the system for you to go out there and search via description or the code. If you have trouble with that, the Business Assistance Office, who is available to you to assist businesses, reach out to us. We'll help you in that direction. You want to make sure you indicate your business classification, complete all required fields. Use the magnifying glass for a search option when available. There are a few questions on there that could be determined a little quirky. You want to make sure that you use that, i.e. when you're putting in your commodity codes. There's another place on there that has a magnifying glass. And I'm drawing a blank right now, so I apologize. But if it's a magnifying glass, click on it, because you want to make sure you don't put the wrong information in. The system won't allow you through if you don't put the correct information in. So use that. That is a benefit. Now, when all else fails, which you really don't, you very rarely need it, we have an iSupplier team. If you're taking notes, iSupplier at nashville.gov. Reach out to them. If by chance, after you have registered, you need to change your users or anything of that nature and you're having trouble, if by chance, we've had this a few times, not often, where somebody's transposed the number and the EIN number is incorrect, if you find that as a problem, reach out to the iSupplier team. They will help you with that or whatever you need. You just want to email them and they are quick to get back to you. Who in here is familiar with Bob? Ooh, no one. I see somebody in the back. Awesome. Sir, have you used Bob before?
Yes, ma'am.
You have. Have you found it to be beneficial?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. So we have one person in the room that has used it. I'm hoping the next time I get to see your face or talk to you that you will tell me you had the opportunity to use Bob and it benefit you. Now, what is Bob? It's called the Business Opportunities Bulletin. What is that? It provides you every solicitation that the purchasing department is putting out. So if by chance, which I should let you know, that once you're registered with Metro government and you put your information in the system, you will receive opportunities for you to bid on jobs. And when I say opportunities, they base it based on your commodity code. So if you have a commodity code, and if I may, ma'am,
Yes.
what do you do?
Or anything in marketing.
So if there's a marketing solicitation that's about to hit the streets and you are registered with us, what is your name, please?
Jamie.
Miss Jamie here will receive what is called a workflow mailer. It is a notification that there is a solicitation that is being let on the streets that she might want to look into in order to see if there's a viable opportunity for her to bid on it, partner, subcontract, or whatever her options are available. Now, please note that that is only a notification. From that notification, you will have to go and register, go into iSupplier and look that solicitation up. You want to do that because you don't know if that is a solicitation you want to participate on if you don't do the research. Now, something else you want to know is that if someone calls you, a prime, to say, hey, I would like you to partner on this with me. You want to know what they're asking you to partner on? You still have the opportunity, but it's always better to have that knowledge on the front end. If not, you don't feel like you've gotten something, or if there might be something else out there that's not specific to your industry, you can go to Bob and find out what solicitations have been released. That is the purpose of Bob. Every solicitation by the purchase office is listed. Suppliers are invited to submit quotes. You can log in there to iSupplier from Bob. A very important component. If you can't find it, again, the easiest thing to do is go to nashville.gov, look at the search engine in the top right-hand corner, type in Bulletin Opportunities Board. It will take you right there. If you have any other additional questions, then don't hesitate to call the Business Assistance Office. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Brian Gleason, the manager of the Business Assistance Office. He's going to bring us some information to you regarding how the Business Assistance Office helps you, certification processes, and contract compliance.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all. One, I know you all was welcome, but I always like to do it myself because you never get enough. Thank you all for taking the time to be out here with us tonight because you could have been other places, but you chose to be here. And so for that, we want to say thank you for being here. As Javale mentioned, my name is Brian Gleason. I am the manager of the Business Assistance Office in Metro, which is part of the finance department. And today I'm going to talk about how you pretty much can use us, what we're here for, how do we service you? Because I say, there's no need for us if it wasn't a you. And so by all means, at all costs, always, call us. We're here for you, to support you, to be here for you. The BAO, Business Assistance Office, is charged with administering the two programs. One is the Procurement Non-Discrimination Program. The acronym we'll use the PNP, and then you have your Small Business Service Disabled Vet-Owned Program. The difference between the two programs, one, PNP is a required program. About, I would say 85 to 90% of our solicitations that goes out on the street, I'll put that requirement on there, which says that the prime contractor that responds to a solicitation must reach out to a minimum of 3 registered and certified MWBEs within the MSA. That is a requirement in order to be respondent to the solicitation. Failure to do so can deem you non-responsive to that bid process, which means that you can't go any further. Your bid will be kicked out. Small Business Program and the Service Disabled Vet-Owned Program is an incentivized program. So if the solicitation that goes out on the street, if it's an invitation to bid, which is we call an ITB, which pretty much will result in a purchase order. That what we will use is an incentivized base, which says that depending on your bid amount, you will be incentivized for that approved small business portion that you propose on a solicitation. And it will be looked upon based on an evaluated bid discount. So there's a chart within, on our website, as well as the solicitation, that will show you how much participation, whatever participation level is, what is the percentage of discount that you will be evaluated on. If it's an RFP, then that's pretty much point-based. So there will be pre-established points, 5 or 10 points for that solicitation. And I always tell people a lot of times that, you know, when you have out of 100 points, 5 or 10 points may not seem big, but it's a lot when you get down to that award being made, because that can actually push you over. And so if you are an approved small business that's bidding as the prime, you will be incentivized and or awarded those full points if you, again, are an approved small business or certified disabled veteran-owned business. Our office is also, we also make policy recommendations for the PNP program, as well as the service disabled veteran-owned program. We also provide development and outreach opportunities. As Javal said, that's what her responsibility is. One is to help small minority women-owned businesses grow, also to reach out to you and get you where you need to be and be successful in the procurement process. The BAO prepares quarterly and annually reports, all of which can be found on our website. If you can't find them, again, just give us a call. We'll be more than happy to direct you where you are. The last bullet down here says the BAO is comprised of 6 staff members. I don't like to say staff members because we spend so much time together. So I would say there's 6 family members because we look at each other as family. And those individuals that's here, you saw Ms. Javal Watson. You can raise your hand again in the back. That does business development and outreach. We have Ms. Tina Burt, that's in the back right here, that does procurement technical assistance as well as contract compliance. Ms. Joanne Carr does the same, and Mr. Jeremy Fry. Ms. Michelle Lane, that's sitting in the back right there. But there's one person who's not here who's very, 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 very important to our structure, and that's Ms. Judy Cantlin. That's our administrative assistant. She keeps us all afloat. That's the person that you will probably talk to and or see more than you see any of us. So going forward, our programmatic approach, one is, as we said, the business development outreach, which we call is tilling the soil. It's saying that, you know, we want to make sure that you are ready, capable, and able to do business with Metro. And that's either 1, by making sure you have the necessary certifications, 2, that you are an approved small business, and or that you have everything that you need to be successful in your bidding opportunity with Metro. Your business status confirmation and verification, as I said once before, is that you must be an approved small business. Metro, as a Metro entity, we approve all of our own small businesses, but we do not certify minority or women-owned businesses. When we get through going through the presentation, you'll see those entities in which we accept certification from, but I just want to make that distinction that we do our own small business approval. And that's just a quick, easy process. 1, saying that you have to have been in business 12 consecutive months, and within that 12 consecutive months made at least $35,000. Once you've jumped over that hurdle, then there's a chart that lists based on your income taxes and that business code that you file your taxes. We'll look within there, and then on your income taxes, we'll make sure that you didn't go beyond the maximum sales volume or number of employees. So what we ask that you do is submit us your taxes, and that's all secured. You know, you can request, you can either come in, or you can send them via email and or fax. Once we review them, excuse me, we will either shred them, or you can make a request that we send them back. We do not want to keep them because anything that's submitted in the system, of course, this is government, it becomes public record. We don't want that out there. If you should come in, it only takes, I would say, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So it's a really quick, easy process, as long as you have everything handy, ready to go. Based on that chart, we make sure that you didn't exceed one or the other. And then we want to make sure, looking at your IRS 941s, to see how many employees that you have. If you should fall out of range for either one, what we do is we'll ask you, one, do you have any owners in those numbers that you report on your IRS 941s? After that, then we'll ask if we can get your payroll registered. We're not trying to pry, get into your business or anything like that. What we're trying to do is actually get you over that hurdle to be approved. And so what we're looking for then is to take those part-time employees and convert those part-time employees into FTE, full-time FTE hours, to see if you fall within that maximum number of employees. So we're going to do all that we can do to get you what you need to get. Then we got the procurement process involvement, contract compliance, which is a very, very important piece, but it also, I think you all will be excited about that piece as well. And I'll go through that later. And then dispute resolution, which we pretty much say is mediation. What we do is, if a prime contractor say, hey, I don't want to use Johnson air conditioning because they're just not performing. We don't just allow them to say, you can't just, okay, you don't have to use them. No, what we do is we want to find out, what is it that they're not performing? What are they not doing well? Have you had that conversation with them? And then we'll take that conversation with the prime and then contact that small minority woman-owned business and say, hey, we got a call from X, Y, and Z. This is what's being said, what's going on. Then we take the two, bring the two together, sit down at the happy round table, and try to work this thing out to try to keep that family relationship going. Because one thing, like I said, we're here for you, but we also want to support everybody and make sure that everybody is getting the benefit. So never, ever, 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 ever think that we're just allowing somebody to just say, hey, I'm going to put this person down, and we're not going to use them. Not going to happen. So the process and benefits of being certified. One thing I want to do is clear up a misconception about you have to be, it's a requirement to be certified in order to do business with Metro. That's not true. It's a benefit, but it's not required. And the reason why we say, one is in being in getting a certification, and there's so many entities that certify, and Javal, at the end of it, she's the guru with certification. She's worked with the certifying entity before and can answer all your questions about that. But there's so many designation certifying entities that you can get a certification from. But one thing we want to do is make sure that you ask those important questions. Which one should you be, certified by? Do you want to be just looked upon as a woman-owned business? Do you want to be 8A certified? Do you want to be a minority-owned business certified? Who do you go to get that from? So there's different certifications for different things and where you want to expand your business. Because there is a requirement for federally funded projects. That's TDOT certified. That's the DBE certification. And so you want to make sure wherever you're trying to go, ask those questions, because we want to make sure we direct you in those right directions, because some of them are free and a lot of them are not. Yes, sir.
I'm DBE certified through Kentucky. Do y'all offer reciprocity for Tennessee?
It depends on who you're certified by. So if you can send us a copy of that certificate,
Okay.
we can definitely look at it and get you an answer back within 20, 30-minute window. Okay, and I'll have my information that you can send it to me.
Okay, great.
What was his question? I'm sorry. I couldn't-
His question was, he's certified through, he's DBE certified, Department of Transportation, so more than likely we would do the reciprocity process.
Okay,
Through Kentucky, right?
yes.
Through Kentucky. Provide your direct access to certifying entities, prime contractors to ease the relationship building. 4, afford the notification of availability opportunities directly from the organization membership. So pretty much what number 4 is saying is this. There's a lot of partnering agencies, quasi governmental agencies that we work with, NES, Airport Authority, TDOT, all these others that's out there, that we all collaborate and work together. So if there's an opportunity that they have, they'll, they give us, the opportunity, we'll send it out to those vendors that's registered with us, because we don't want to take for granted that just because you're registered here don't mean you're registered there. And so we want to make sure that we, hit all corners to make sure you get, again, what you need. Number 5 is access to technical assistance and training opportunities. We have a training schedule that's out on our website. There's a packet on the back table. Before you leave here tonight, make sure you get that. I strongly, 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 strongly encourage that you attend as many training opportunities as you can, not only just to learn what the text is for that, but also we're in a world of, in business, it's all about relationship building. And that's an opportunity where you can actually get in to meet those individuals, who's there that may be bidding on that project tomorrow as that prime. But since they met you and know what you do, are more than likely to put you on their team.
Is there a advantage to being registered as minority or women-owned versus just being registered as a small business?
Again, the only advantage would be if you are a certified minority, woman-owned business, then you're on a list. So if a solicitation should go out on the street, say for instance, if they're, I'll just pick one that I know, building CJC, the Criminal Justice Center, downtown across from the Birch Building. So what happens is they're required to reach out to a minimum of 3 registered and certified MWBEs. So what they'll do is, if you are a certified MWBE and registered with Metro, based on the commodity code in which they run that list, you will be on that list. And so however many on there, one is, you would have an advantage if they know you. If you've built that relationship with them, to say, hey, I know they're certified, they're registered with Metro, this guy here, we know this is the component that we're gonna use, we're gonna put him on our team. That's one, that they have to do the outreach. The second one is, if you are registered and approved small business and/or a registered and certified services able vet, then they can be incentivized for the proposal of using you on their project.
I guess what I'm asking is, would there be more opportunities if we were registered as a woman-owned business as opposed to a small business? Like, are there opportunities out there that are just small business?
It's equal. It's equal. And by being both, you're actually increasing your probability.
Gotcha.
So that's why I say, if you can, get as much as you can get.
Gotcha.
May I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
I'm a small business, but every once in a while, I have a piece of work that I can bid as a prime. And so I'll reach out to disadvantaged women-owned businesses. And by doing so, I get quotes back. And then if they're low, I use them. So and they ask you reason for using or not using. And if they're low, they deserve the work. So I think there is an advantage to them having this, what do you call it, the
PNP, procurement non-discrimination, being certified as a minority or woman-owned business.
Yes, so, yeah, just the fact that I go through the process of finding people that can do this type of service.
Right.
I make contacts that way, and then I get quotes from them.
Right.
And if they're low, I use them. So I would say there's a big advantage to being on the program.
This is someone that's not just me, the one that's administering, but someone that's using it. So these are the certifying entities that Metro accept. You'll see a list here. I'm not gonna go through them. We have a packet in the back. It's on the list. You can read it at your leisure. But again, when I said there are certain designations that you may wanna go for because of the work. TDOT, federally funded projects. The SBA also is federal projects that you wanna be certified for if you wanna do federal work. WeBank, WBEs, they have their own type of certification. They have their own solicitation projects. You must be certified by them in order to work on their projects. But again, Mr. Val Watson can go through all of that. If you have any questions about the specificity of any of the certifying entities. Contract compliance, a piece that I love, a piece that I came in to this area doing. Contract compliance, what we have here is the act of as an advocate for small and the disadvantaged business before and after the pre and post award process. So what that means is we're your ears, eyes, and we're your voice. In the pre-award process, what that's saying is when a prime contractor submits a solicitation, we're there on the front end to make sure, one, that they've done what they were supposed to do. They reached out to the minimum of 3 registered and certified MWBEs. If there was successful participation, that you all have assigned the necessary agreement forms, submitted it to our office. During that process, once the bids come in, review, make sure, yes, vet those forms, they did the outreach. We have the documentation to show that, yes, they did reach out to them in a timely manner. They didn't reach out to them in 24 hours when the bid closed. That's not acceptable. That's not something we accept. That's not good. That's not good faith. As the process goes along, when you go into the evaluation process, we're there sitting at the table with your voice to make sure that, you know, departments and or individuals are not trying to just arbitrarily just exclude small minority woman-owned businesses. This is what you said you was gonna do, this is what you're gonna do. And if there's a failure to do so, then we wanna make sure that, you know, everybody has a fair opportunity to sit at the table to say their piece and let's try to work this thing out. But most importantly, on the post-award side, what that says is that what we do, once a contract has been executed, filed in the clerk's office, what we do is we say, once the work start happening, we expect to hear back from the prime contractor every month. What I say is I want to hear back from you monthly. One is, we know that the prime contractor is busy, but we also need you to make it important to make sure that you report to us the activity or the utilization of those small minority women-owned businesses that you said you were going to use. And what they must do is, one is, if there's no utilization, I say it's easily to get programmed by sending us an email on a monthly basis saying there's no activity. If you don't do that, like I said, I'm out in the field, I'm working, this other little stuff here is not important, so that can easily go to the wayside. But I want to get them programmed. Send me something. And if not, what you get is, what some people may say is a nasty gram. It's a non-compliance letter. And saying that you're in non-compliance, you have failed to report your SMWBE payments for the month as of such and such. Failure to do so can result in your payments being held. When you're saying you want to mess with somebody's money, that opens up their eyes. And so we get a lot of stuff coming in after that. And so I want you to know we actually do that. So that prime contractor is responsible for reporting their payments in our procurement system on a monthly basis. Not only do they report it, but they also must send us a copy of the invoices and canceled checks. Notice I said canceled checks. We don't want copies of checks because people write checks, make copies, never cash them. We need copies of the canceled checks, front and back, to say that these checks were actually cashed. If it's a construction project, what we do is we ask for payment application, lien waivers, everything to support those payments. By me having an accounting background, I can be quite anal, and then I have some very meticulous family members that's on my team, that if it's a penny off when we reconcile, because we do reconcile on a monthly basis, we're going to go back to them and say, hey, you need to go in the system, you need to fix this. And so one of the things that I'm proud to say that we're looking to implement going forward is with subcontractor certification, which is saying that on a quarterly basis, when those prime contractors report to us, we don't want to just let that stop there. We want to get you all involved. So what that means is we want to send you all a list of payments to say, this is how much was reported for you for the period, for this quarter. This is how much. We need you to verify that. We know that there's going to be a lag because payments typically lag. Once you get the checks and all of that, 30 days later, that's fine. But we want to make sure that you know what's been reported. And then there may be some times where, you know, hey, no, this is not what I got. I have the documentation to prove that. And so by us having a small staff and not being able to get out there into the weeds, into the fields, we use you all as our eyes and ears. And never, ever, 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 ever feel that you're telling on somebody. Because again, in order for this thing to be successful, we all have to work together. And know that, you know, what you talk to us about, and, you know, it's never shared that John called and said, no. Hey, want to call and follow up on this. Where are we at? Why are we here? This is what you said. So again, we're here for you all, and we want you to use us because, excuse me, there wouldn't be a need for us if it wasn't a you. And it's always good to say, and I say this, and my pastor says this all the time, is that we not only want you, but we need you. And it's always greater to need somebody than just to want them. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask a question because from a banking perspective, I rarely ever get canceled checks returned to me. So are there other options besides getting the actual hard copy of the check? I mean, because we're moving more to an electronic.
Good question. Great question. Great question. So what we say is this. Before we sign that contract, if you can't, it's a difference in can't getting and you really don't want to go through that extra step to get it. We can work it out. But let's see on the front end, before we sign this contract and enter an agreement, would this be feasible and acceptable form of proof of payment? Because we don't want an Excel spreadsheet because anybody can do that. We need to see something that's bona fide that you can get from that bank. With that bank letterhead, some kind of stamp, some kind of serial number, some kind of barcode, something to verify that the payment are what they are. Yes, sir.
I have a question. So going back to the last slide where you say you're kind of advocates for the small businesses. So I just recently didn't get a bid that it was awarded to either out-of-state businesses or national businesses, meaning like they have locations throughout the United States. And I know the people, I help out in the departments that I'm trying to, you know what I mean? I work with Metro Nashville Public Schools.
Okay.
I donate stuff to the kids, I do all these things, but the bids are going to, you know, Guitar Center affiliates or out-of-state. And now, do they have? Is there a way to legally find out what they were bidding, so I can see if I'm even in the ballpark?
Well, one thing, Manuel, that's why I walked over here, because I want to address you by name.
Okay.
I think it's key to also to understand that there's a difference between Metro schools and Metro government.
Okay.
We're totally different entities. Although we fall within one umbrella, we're part of one family, we just live in different houses. And so, their process I think it's a little bit more looser than ours.
Nice way of
So if it was on Metro government side, what I would say is we do have this thing in place called fast track review, which means that once the solicitation has been awarded, you as a prime contractor can come in to review not only your submission, but other submissions too. Because that way you can grow, you can see, what did I do wrong?
Right.
You can find out what the evaluation committee said, you know, what were my weaknesses, and then grow from that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that a lot of people may not know, but that's something that we do and found out to be important. And so if it was a Metro government project, then that's something you can come in and say, hey, how did why didn't I win this? What were my shortfalls? What were my weaknesses? What were my strengths? What can I do better? And a lot of times what I find is that even from the prime and the sub level, the assumptions always can get us a little bit mixed up because we may think that you didn't get it because you just got thrown out, or you got it, or the other person got it because of one thing or the other. And it hadn't even, and they could have been recommended for non-responsiveness and never even progressed to the evaluation process, or even being one of the ones that's being awarded. So I would say it's always best to go ahead and ask those questions. You have the right, because it's public record, once it's open, to go ahead and review
So, okay.
the bids that were submitted and see, and I don't know how theirs look.
So getting these certifications and so forth, what I'm learning here today, which I still want to learn how to, it won't necessarily help me with the school side because that's a different entity. Okay. I'm still sticking around, I just asked. I'm not bailing.
But again, you can find out more, like, we want you to definitely proceed with being certified. And then, what do you do?
I own a music store. I make musical instruments by hand, but we work with school districts around the United States. But specifically, we invest here in Nashville because that's where we are. We're a small business here in Nashville, 90 years in business, 3rd generation, family owned. And like I said, work with the schools, help the kids, donate stuff to the programs, get different mentors to go and talk to the kids, and then stores in Iowa or Guitar Center chains are winning all the bids, and that's like, I don't know what I can or can't do. If they're giving away the product, I can't keep in business that way, so.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna refer to Miss Lane here, who's the purchasing agent. Do you have another answer or response to Mr. Manuel?
Well, what I would say too is that Metro Nashville Public Schools, their board has recently approved the DBE policy. So having some conversations with Dr. Joseph related to that, I know that they're interested in determining what kinds of next steps and what kinds of processes and procedures they need to put in place to be able to effectively administer some programming that allows them to adhere to that policy. So I would say keep your eyes open, because I would suspect that there's going to be some movement on the school side of things in the near future. I'm going to move into the portion about understanding the purchasing process, but I do want to speak just quickly to another point that you mentioned about not getting the bid, and being here, and et cetera. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the varying ways that we procure within Metro general government. And that is the portion of government that buys for about 52 departments and semi-autonomous boards and commissions. And one of the methods that we use is what is called a competitive sealed bid, in which case we're looking strictly at cost. So if you submitted a bid to, say, Metro, and it was for an invitation to bid, all the other elements that you talked about, which are beneficial to our society and our community as a whole, are good. But we're strictly going to make that award based upon who presented the lowest dollar proposition to Metro.
Okay.
So there are some instances where you're going to see, you've come in and you've got all these other value adds. But if the cost isn't the lowest cost, then we're not going to be able to move in that direction. The way that the programs that Brian mentioned are so important is because if you're a small business, like he noted, that low cost is looked at in an evaluated way, meaning you're going to get a discount in your cost. So you may have the hardest low cost. She may have a cost that is a little bit higher, but because she's a small business, Metro's going to discount her cost to a point. And now guess what? She really has the low cost. She's going to get paid what she bid actually, but for evaluation purposes, she's the low cost. So if you're talking about a situation that is a bid situation, a hard bid situation, it is going to be one of those where all those other elements are good. They're important to our community, but we're looking at the hard dollar. Now, in order to look at some of the things that you're talking about, we'd have to be looking at a request for proposal, and we're going to talk some more about all those procurement methods. Okay? All right.
So if there's no more questions for me, I'm going to turn you over to
I don't know that I'm going to be as colorful. We are family, though. The light's going to get me. I feel like I'm on a stage. I went to a comedy show not too long ago, and the comedian was standing there, and I think this is probably what he felt like, the light right in his face. But, I don't have any jokes, so I think I'm probably pretty plain. And I'm going to try to make sure I do all of this correctly. I have been told to remind everybody that you have questions and comments cards. So if you don't have an opportunity to ask your specific question here today, please feel free to write it down. Make sure you turn it in. The ladies in the back have those. Make sure you turn it in the back, and we're going to get you an answer. So that contact information is important. Okay, as Brian mentioned, my name is Michelle Hernandez-Lane. I serve as Metro Government's Chief Procurement Officer and Purchasing Agent. I'm extremely pleased to be here. I feel extraordinarily privileged to serve in this role. I think it provides me with a very unique opportunity to work with people, to impart a meaningful impact on something that's very important. I consider myself a public servant. I've been in Metro government for 17 years. I'm 8 months into this role and excited about it. So I want to make sure as we talk about understanding the purchasing process that you know that it's important for me as I look at how we can maximize competition and how we can work to make sure that we're serving our taxpayers and the residents of Davidson County in the best way and ensuring that we always get the best product or the best service for the best price with maximum inclusion. That's the way that I look at things. So we're looking at it through a lens of quality, a lens of cost, and the social compact. All of those things are important. Okay. Is it just me or is it just really warm in here? I feel like I'm in the hot seat. I'm about to burn up. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the varying procurement methodologies that we use. I think it's important for you as you think about doing business with Metro and you want to do business with Metro and how do I do business with Metro, that you understand all of the varying ways that Metro will buy. All of our solicitations are not going to look the same. Sometimes you're going to get something directly from the department. They're going to call you directly out of the blue. Sometimes you're going to get something directly from our electronic procurement system, which is called iProcurement. You're going to get an email, kind of what Jerval was talking about earlier about making sure you have all your registered information correct. Sometimes you're going to get it directly from them. So the reason that that is so is because we buy in a variety of different ways. So the delegated purchasing authority that I say Metro, but that I as the purchasing agent have granted to the varying departments means basically that they have the authority to engage in procurement under a certain level without it having to be directly and individually approved by me. I'm going to go through that in a little more detail. One of the other ways that we procure, and I talked with Manuel a little bit more about that just a few minutes ago, was the invitation to bid process. We also procure using the request for proposals process. We also engage in some sole source negotiation. And one other item that's not here that I'm going to talk about a little bit also is cooperative purchasing. Okay, so moving into delegated purchasing. I hate to be needy. I'm not going to be like Mariah Carey was on New Year's Eve. I need some tea, but I would love some water if that can happen. I drank all my water. Delegated purchasing. These are purchases that fall under $10,000. The departments at their individual departmental level have the authority to go out and make those purchases. So basically, if you look at the procurement code and the subsequent regulations, it specifies the authority there for me to say, if you, Department of Emergency Communications, need to go out and buy something that we don't directly have on contract, and it's going to fall within a certain dollar amount, in this case $10,000 or less, I grant to you the authority to go ahead and make those purchases under some conditions. So we have a schedule. If it's up to $4,000, they can get 3 written quotes. $9,999 to $4,000, 3 written quotes. Below $4,000, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm not being needy, I promise. I'm just being thirsty. Then they can get 1 written quote. If it's under $1,000 or under that $999, then they can get verbal quotes for it. So they're authorized to engage in that level of transaction at the departmental level without it coming through to the central procurement office.
If it's above $10,000, they're going to have to send it over to our shop, and we're going to have to solicit it for them. That means we're going to be sending it out to all of those suppliers and vendors who have registered for the specific commodity that they've registered for, saying, we're soliciting offers for this specific thing. Submit a bid to us or submit an offer. Okay. I'm sorry?
Which one was your office? You said you come, if it's over 10,000, you come to your office? Which office was that again?
Purchasing.
Oh, thank you.
Central purchasing is just the procurement division within Metro, but we have a variety, and I'm glad you asked that question. We have a variety of folks on staff that are buyers, that buy everything. I tell people we buy everything that it takes to make Nashville go. We buy the shoes that the inmates wear. We buy ballparks. We buy grass cutting for, the parks, and then we buy, street paving. So we buy a variety of different things. And there are a number of folks who are on the buying staff who work to procure those, various products and services. And they interface with the Business Assistance Office that Brian mentioned earlier to make sure that we've got the consideration for small, minority, and women-owned businesses intact. Okay, so the invitation to bid process. This is important for people to understand the difference between a competitive sealed bid and a competitive sealed proposal. A competitive sealed bid or an invitation to bid really is used when we're buying something that is really subject to a uniformity of standard. We're buying chairs, we're buying bottles, we're buying widgets. We're buying something that is subject to such uniformity that the major determinant for the city needs to be how much we're going to be charged for it. So an invitation to bid is going to establish the specifications. It's got to be a chair that has 4 legs. It could be brown or it could be blue. You tell us which one you'll offer at what pricing. It should have a padded seat, or we'll say it could be made out of metal. We're going to give you very specific information and what we call specs or specifications. We're going to define for you when we need it, what kind of schedule for delivery we anticipate. That's going to be separate from the specifications, but it's going to be listed in the invitation to bid. It'll also establish the conditions under which we need it. We need you to deliver these things within 15 days of when we order it, and it needs to be delivered to this site, and it needs to be assembled, or you can drop ship it and we'll assemble it or whatever. But all of that information is going to be laid out in the invitation to bid. It's going to require outreach for the procurement non-discrimination program. And Brian talked a little bit about that in his presentation. You have to demonstrate to us how you've reached out to minority-owned and woman-owned businesses, and with what success. That is a condition of your bid, if it's that lowest bid that we talked about, even one for small businesses in which you've had the evaluated discounting occur. The PMP outreach is still going to be required. You have to show us that you've made an effort, a good faith effort, to reach out to minority-owned and woman-owned businesses. And the cost modifier that Brian talked about for SBE, which we also talked about, is going to be present in those bids. So I kind of stole my own thunder a little bit because I explained it to Manuel, but the way that it works again is you're going to get that discount if you're a small business, or if you bring small business participation as part of your bid to the table. So, we use bids for some construction projects as well, where we lay out, you must perform this, 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 this. All of the details of the specific construction project are entailed in that invitation to bid, and it will often result in some subcontracting. You're going to have to subcontract the concrete portion of it, or you're going to have to subcontract for, the landscaping related to whatever project it is. If that subcontractor that you bring to the table is a small business, then you're going to be able to have the benefit of that subsequent discount for that small business participation. Okay, any questions about the invitation to bid? Typically, invitations to bid are very simple. They're pretty much, I like to call them cut and dry. We know exactly what it is that we need to buy. We're going to tell you exactly what it is that we need to buy. And the most important thing to us related to it is who's going to bring the lowest cost. And according to the procurement code and regulations, using an invitation to bid, we are required to award to, if we make an award. There are some instances where we look at it and everybody's over budget. And there's no way that we can reasonably award to anybody, even the lowest of all of those bidders, because they're all over budget. But in an instance where the bids are acceptable, the procurement code and regulations require us to award to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. So that's what you'll see with an invitation to bid. It's strictly based upon who's going to bring that best cost. Okay, so let's talk conversely a little bit about requests for proposals. Okay, so requests for proposals are different. They're different because they really provide the city with an opportunity to evaluate best value. We're going to be looking at who can bring not just the best cost to Metro, but who can bring the best approach to delivering a solution to Metro based upon what we've established as our need. It establishes the objectives. A request for proposals also establishes the requirements. It tells you how we're going to be grading you. The procurement regulations specify that a request for proposal should be used when there's a need for the city to engage in what is defined as comparative evaluative judgment, meaning I need to be able to understand and compare your offer to the next offer and determine why it's best, not just why you might have the lowest cost or who brings the lowest cost, but it's based upon who brings the best offer to the city whole scale in terms of a value for what we need, for what we're attempting to purchase and for the price. So it's not just the price. The evaluation criteria is our way of determining or engaging in that comparison. So typically what you're going to see is we'll have project approach included in there. We're going to have your small business included in there. We're going to have cost. We're going to have qualifications and experience. Those kinds of things are going to be included in the evaluation criteria. So we may very well say, we need a designer to design a new park for us. That's probably not the best example because we can't get cost on those. Those are architecture and engineering. We may say we need somebody to build this new park based upon a design we've already gotten. And we want to understand what your approach is going to be to doing that. We want to know how you're going to mitigate, the schedule, the risks that go along with, the schedule. How are you going to make sure that you stay on schedule? What kinds of things you anticipate that can knock you off schedule? All of those kinds of things. We want to know how much you're going to charge us. We want to know what kind of a team you propose to bring to get this done. We want to understand all of that, and we want to know about the qualifications of that team. So an RFP allows us to establish all of those criteria. We'll tell you how many points each one of those criteria are worth. We have to tell you that up front. The procurement regulations require that we establish for you up front so you know exactly what you're working with. They're going to grade me, 30 points for cost. They're going to grade me 25 points for my team qualifications or whatever it is. So you can know exactly how everything is weighted. We're going to disclose all of that up front. And then, again, cost. And we have typically built into the cost for an RFP that modifier. That modifier is there for small business. So you'll see us build that discounting process, and it's going to be in the solicitation. We'll build that in so that you can get credit for the use of small businesses and for service-disabled vets. And I will say that service-disabled veteran-owned businesses are treated just like small businesses by Metro. So we have what I would define as a micro small business program. It's not comparable to the SBA program because there are a lot of businesses that are pretty big that participate at the SBA level. We're looking at businesses that are significantly smaller because we know that many of our small businesses come from, this region. They're in this area in the Nashville MSA, and they are what we define as micro small businesses. So you're going to see that small business approach built into our cost. Okay, let's talk a little bit about sole source contracts and cooperative agreements, or contracts that are pursuant to a cooperative agreement. The procurement code and subsequently the regulations allow for the city to engage in contracting with a single or a sole source. And the only way that that is acceptable is if it's clear that there is only one source or only one solution that is out there available to meet that need. That reason can be a number of reasons. It could be because, what we're buying has proprietary compatibility. We've got Motorola products, and the only kind of maintenance that we can have for the Motorola product is offered by Motorola. So that's a sole source. It could be that we need to procure something that is, very specialized, and there's only one entity out there that's licensed and authorized to sell that specific thing. And so we typically, the way that our office works, I like to be sure, because I'm a little bit type A. I've had some people say I'm a lot of bit type A. I don't know. There's just something about breaking the law that doesn't feel good to me, so I just don't do it. But we have a vetting process. So once our sole source requests come in from the departments, they say, and here's the other thing, I love my departments, but most of them think that everything is a sole source, but it's not. So what we do is we engage in a process of researching what they're seeking to procure via sole source. We have a thorough vetting process, and then a final determination that staff conducts before they present it to me. And often what they'll say is, I agree, this is a sole source, and here's why. Or they'll say, you know what, I went out, I did a simple Google search, and I found 5 other people that sell the same thing. Guess what? It's not a sole source. So we will engage in some research to ensure that it meets the requirements that are set forth in the code and in the regulations. And if it does, then we approve it, or I approve it as a sole source. If it's not, then we send it back to the department and we tell them, based on the information that you've given us, including the cost that you wanted to pay for this, which is in excess of your delegated authority, we have to procure this for you, and we're going to start a solicitation. That should say sole source or brand instead of sales. The other thing that we do is, sometimes we have a Motorola system which requires some compatible Motorola product. Motorola is the sole brand that we can use, but there are a variety of different folks who sell this Motorola brand. So instead of it being a sole source, sometimes it's a sole brand, which means that we can still put an invitation to bid out for it, but we're only going to buy that brand, and we're going to see which ones of these resellers or distributors are going to give us the best price for it. Okay, cooperative contracts. The procurement code with the sections that are cited here allow for us to engage in purchasing with other local municipalities, with the state of Tennessee, and under cooperatives. And cooperatives are, some people know about GPOs, kind of group purchasing organizations. It is a variation of that. There are some organizations out there that engage in these cooperatives across the country. The National IPA, is one of those where they leverage the buying power of multiple cities to get the best price. So there are instances where we buy off of state contract with other cities and using cooperative purchasing. However, I will tell you that the Procurement Standards Board, which is the body that governs our purchasing for the most part, and they establish and promulgate our procurement regulations, so if they need to be changed, the Procurement Standards Board is responsible for that. The Procurement Standards Board, before I came into this role, limited the authority of the purchasing agent to just engage in cooperative purchasing. And much of that was because they wanted to make sure that we weren't simply engaging in cooperative purchasing when we could get the benefit of the competitive process and have increased participation, potentially, of small, minority, and woman-owned businesses. So if we want to procure something that is specifically for service, I cannot simply say, yep, state contract has this, we're going to buy off the state contract. I can't simply say, schools has a contract for this thing, I'm going to buy off the school's contract. If it's for service, I have to engage or consult, as the procurement regulations read, with the purchasing, I'm the purchasing agent, duh, with the finance director, and she and I have to confer. And there are a number of questions that she typically asks. I've only asked for it twice since I've been in this role. She approved one and she declined one. And so it's just an effort to ensure that we're not losing our opportunity to leverage our small business, minority and woman-owned business participation in solicitations by simply buying off of existing contracts where they don't have the opportunity to participate at that point. Okay, I'm going to jump just quickly and then I'll go back. I want to talk a little bit about the various solicitation outcomes. So if we're using those invitations to bid or those requests for proposals, or if we're engaging in a sole source, if we're engaging in cooperatives, whatever it is, there's going to be an outcome, which is that, binding agreement that provides some protections for Metro government and for the vendor. Purchase orders usually result from invitations to bid. So if we put out a simple ITB, again, where the only thing we really care so much about is the cost, you're usually going to see those result in a purchase order. Once we get done with that whole procurement process, the final outcome is a purchase order that we issue to the vendor. That purchase order does have specific terms and conditions. And when you're bidding, you acknowledge that, yes, I accept the terms and conditions of the purchase order. We're not just kind of asking you to blindly say, yep, I can do whatever, and I don't know what the terms and conditions are, but I'll accept it. We show you what those terms and conditions are in the solicitation itself so that you have some sense of what you're getting into before you get into it. And they are just as binding, again, as those that are in contracts. Contracts usually result from an RFP. So if we're, trying to procure, we want to get the best value, we're engaging in comparative evaluative judgment, usually what we're buying is something that requires that we have a more extensive contract that protects Metro and protects the vendor. Again, it will also have specific terms and conditions. They also have to be accepted during the solicitation process. So when you're bidding, one of the things that you're going to acknowledge is that you accept the terms and conditions of the contract. If you don't, you're going to lay out for us what any of those exceptions that you take are. There are some exceptions that are deal breakers, that just simply Metro cannot do. And if you're not willing to accept the contract in that specific provision, then it really kind of results in a no-go for us. We're not able to move forward with you. Contracts may run multiple years. The maximum number of years that you'll see a contract be without council approving it is for 5 years. The only authority that we have in the purchasing office, the procurement division, to contract is for a 5-year period. If the need is greater than 60 months, then we have to send it to council to approve it to be beyond that period of time. We often procure what we call indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts also. Those indefinite delivery and indefinite quantity contracts are, we know we need office supplies, but we don't really have any true way of knowing the extent to which the departments are going to buy. They may buy this much, they may buy this much. We don't know exactly what it is, so we're not going to specify a certain amount that the contract is going to be necessarily, but we are going to tell you that it is an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract so that you can be queued up to provide given those circumstances. And those are generally multi-departments. So typically, we're buying those kinds of things, what I call enterprise-wide. Office supplies, temporary temp services, those kinds of things. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to talk to you about 5 tips now for responding to solicitations. Okay. When you're responding to a solicitation, this is the meat. This is the really important piece of this because this is what helps you to really set yourself apart and to make sure that you're ready to compete most effectively for these solicitations. You need to make sure that you're paying good attention to the solicitation requirements. Looking at the specifications, you're looking at the schedule, you're looking at the quality that's expected on this project or these projects. Make sure that you have the capacity to do the work, and make sure that you're able to think about your past performance and express that appropriately. When we think about the solicitation requirements around specifications, there's something to think about. When you're looking at the specs that Metro's put out there, do you understand them on their face, or do you need some additional information? Do you need clarification? Every solicitation will have built into the process a place and a way for you to ask questions. You've got to do it. If you don't do it within that solicitation process and within the period of time that is allowed for you to ask questions, you really you lose your leverage at that point. It's built into the system for a purpose, because sometimes you have a question about something that fundamentally changes the way we've got that solicitation out there. And in the, using the competitive bidding scenarios that are established for us, not just in our regulations, but also in state law, we have to then provide everybody else the benefit of that information because it could affect their bid. So make sure, if you need clarification on anything, that you're working within the confines and the construct of the solicitation itself to get those questions in a timely fashion. You need to also think about the specifications. What is it that Metro's asking for? Is it kind of restrictive? Is it something that's really going to be too difficult for me to really comfortably provide or supply because of how restrictive it is? And if that's the case, you may have to say, this may not be the best bid for me. That's a question and a business decision that you have to make. Sometimes if you think that it's too restrictive, you need to let us know and say, you know what, and it would be easier for me if you would do it this way. It has to be, look, this is so restrictive that it looks like you've got the solicitation built for a certain respondent. In which case, we need to know that. We need to know if we've structured a solicitation in that way, because that's not our intent. Our intent, again, is to have maximum competition so that we can get the best product or service at the best price with maximum inclusion. And to that point, we're thinking about whether or not, those specifications limit competition. Again, if you've got questions about the way that the specifications are written, you have to challenge it before the bid date is closed. You can't wait until after the bid date is closed, you submitted a bid and you didn't win, to say, hey, the way you had the solicitation written was problematic. Because you've accepted it. You've accepted the solicitation as it is when you submit your offer. So you want to make sure you do yourself a favor by saying, look, there's a problem with the way you're asking for this, and make sure that we know about it. And make sure you do that before you submit the bid, because it really nullifies your ability then to challenge the bid, because you didn't question it until you didn't win. Okay, on the schedule, you want to make sure as you're looking at Metro's expectations around the schedule that you understand it fully, that you're looking at any specific milestones that we may be expecting of you in terms of delivery for anything, whether it's hard delivery of specific items or if it's milestone delivery based upon your submission for an RFP. You're going to provide us with services on a specific project, and at this date we expect this, and at this date we expect this, and it's based upon what you're proposing. You need to make sure that those milestones are clear and that you can deliver on them. Think about the projects in terms of, if I bid on this, how does it impact other work that I have? Am I going to kind of put myself in a hole by trying to deliver on this Metro project, and other things that I have are either going to go by the wayside, or I have so many other things that I'm not going to be able to devote the attention that I need to this Metro project. Are there any specific risks? And we'll often put requests for proposals out there, and we'll ask you, so that we can best understand, your qualifications for this project. We'll ask you, what do you anticipate? What do you see as risks that could be associated with this project? And we'll often evaluate you based upon what you say around the risks. And we'll also evaluate you often on what you propose to mitigate those risks. So we want to make sure that you're best positioned and that we're best positioned to be successful. And looking at those kinds of things related to the schedule are going to be beneficial for you. So when we think about quality, you want to think about understanding the quality that Metro expects. And we'll put that very clearly in the solicitation. And you want to think about it from the standpoint of your ability and your company's ability to deliver that quality. If you can't deliver that quality, what are the potential risks associated with it? That you probably won't be as successful the next time getting a contract if you aren't able to deliver the quality that you agreed to when you bid on the project. So those are all things that you want to think about, and think about how you can mitigate those risks. If one of the risks for you is that in order to deliver this specific service to Metro, I'm going to have to ramp up a little bit. I'm going to have to get some additional staffing in here. I'm going to do some staff augmentation. There are potentially, for me, some risks associated with that. But what am I doing to mitigate those risks? What kinds of things do I do to make sure that I'm able to always provide the kind of woman power, man power, whatever we want to call? I talked too long. No? Okay, it wasn't me. I don't think it was me. But to make sure that you're able to mitigate those risks and that you're best prepared to deliver the quality that's expected. I will tell you that, if you get a project with Metro and you're unable to deliver on the schedule, you're not able to deliver the quality that was expected, you're not able to deliver in terms of meeting the specific specifications that were laid out, it really creates a difficulty for you in terms of future work. It's like anything else. You have to go about really expressing your ability to perform and making sure that you meet those requirements that are laid out and creating what I call a track record of success of performance. And those items related to schedule, quality, meeting the specifications are all important to that. We're going to keep on moving just because I know the time is starting to get short for us. But you also, yes?
So in all of this, can you sort of tell us what happens during the RFPs, or what is the decision-making process, or who actually makes that decision?
So for RFPs, again, we talked a little bit about invitations to bid. I mean, those are simple, low cost. For RFPs, we establish the evaluation criteria. We have an evaluation committee. The procurement regulations specify that proposals before award should only be shown to Metro personnel who have a legitimate interest in it. So you're going to see, for the most part, my expectation is that anybody who's reviewing these are Metro personnel. And that could be a Metro employee, that could be a member of an appointed board. We may be buying life insurance, so somebody from the benefit board may be on that evaluation committee, but they are an extension of Metro by virtue of their appointment to that board. So that's who you're going to see actually making the decisions. What will happen is we'll have a Metro buyer that will facilitate that process. The Metro buyer is really helping those folks ensure they're not voting members. They're not making the decisions, but what they are doing is facilitating those members of that evaluation committee to ensure that they are, one, reviewing the proposals in total, and that we're looking at them compared to the items that we requested, the evaluation criteria that we requested in the solicitation itself. And so what we do is we look at those, we score them based upon the weights that we've already disclosed to you, and then we sum up those scores in what we call an award summary or an award justification. And then that's how we determine who's, the best evaluated.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, when you think about capacity, you want to think about your business's capacity to deliver what Metro is seeking. Do you have it? If you don't have it, can you get it? Can you ramp up, like we talked about, to get that capacity? Again, the effect on your current work and risks that are associated with it. Yes?
So often the only challenge that some of the small businesses have in coming up to some of those RFPs is, for example, bonding requirements. And does Metro offer any assistance or guidance to programs that allow small businesses to have access to bond programs in order to be able to meet those financial requirements?
It's interesting that you asked that question. We do not currently have a bonding assistance program. One of the things that we've learned, and I'll say this, you all spoke and we listened, okay? We had some listening sessions that are a part of this series, and we heard those kinds of things. We've also had the recommendation made from one of our consultants that we contemplate a bonding assistance program so that we can work toward increasing capacity of small and minority and women-owned businesses to participate in projects. So we don't currently have a bonding assistance program or any kind of surety assistance either, but it is something that we're looking at in anticipation of helping to prepare business owners to be best positioned, not just for transit. Transit is important, but so that you can bid on the roughly $785 million that we procure every year.
Well, and also just an alternative to that can be a acceptance of E&O insurance in lieu of surety. Those are other types of things that you can do.
Javale, can you write that down for me? I don't have a pen up here. Acceptance of E&O insurance.
E&O insurance or other adequate insurance in lieu
of bonding. I will tell you this, that there was a time probably about 6 years ago where every project valued at $50,000 or more, construction projects had to be bonded, period. We have since modified the procurement code to make it consistent with what state law is, which is $100,000. So if a project is valued at $100,000 or less, you're not going to have to produce a bond on it. So that is something that we do to try and assist businesses that we know may run into some issues with bonding. And plus we think about the frequency with which we actually call in bonds. You know, we try to really manage relationships so that we don't find ourselves there. But your point about the E&O insurance is noted, and I'll have to take a look at it and research it to see if that's something that I could then recommend potentially that we do to ease that, that potential issue for smaller businesses. Thinking about past work experience, past work performance, you want to think about lessons learned. You know, if you've attempted to participate or to, submit an offer for another project, and there's something that you learned in the course of that work that you then can bring to bear in some way to the offer that you submit to Metro, you should do that. You should also make sure, to the extent that it's necessary, that you have a quality assurance plan. That's something that's going to be beneficial to Metro to know that you're thinking about and you're focused on the quality of the project, and that you've got a plan in place to ensure that that quality is always what it needs to be. You need to also think about how on past performances you can improve communications. Communication is key to most everything. So as long as you're able to effectively communicate the status of certain things, any hiccups or problems that are there, etc., you want to make sure that you do that as well. Okay, so just to kind of summarize, you want to make sure that in most cases, you underpromise. You don't want to overpromise something that's outside of your capacity to deliver, that is outside of the scope of what quality you're accustomed to delivering. Underpromise, overdeliver. That way, Metro is pleasantly surprised because you told us you were going to do this and you did this. That's a better situation to be in than to sell it all the way up here and it's shaky because you've never really delivered up here before and you end up only delivering here. That's a bad case scenario for you. So you want to make sure that you underpromise, overdeliver, and think about a closeout report. You know, that's a good customer service tactic, where you summarize the successes. This is once you've, won a project, that you make sure the budget performance is there. You've got a price that you agree to, and most departments, all departments, are working within a budget. And they're going to make a decision, part of the decision, based upon cost. But if they identify some cost savings at the end of the day with that contract, it's gravy. And make sure that you've got your performance on schedule as well. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some red flags that we see in the process. Red flags that you need to identify for your business, and then red flags that affect the results. If we constantly see a vendor with specification substitutions, we've given you the specs, but you're asking for spec substitutions, that could really mean that you're not able to deliver. So to the extent that you're able to deliver the specification that we ask for, that's what you should be doing. If you can't do it, and we're not offering for you to be able to have what we call an approved equal, which means we want this specific thing, but we will allow you to also bid and say, but I can provide this, which meets everything that you need, then we'll spell that out in the solicitation. If your submission is incomplete, that's a red flag. If you don't have the appropriate licenses, including for your subcontractors, that's a red flag. If we see that there's some fiscal issues potentially based upon your response, that's going to be a red flag for us as well. Some red flags that you could run into is, we don't want anybody to bid a project and undercut their costs so much that they end up what I call paying us to have the contract. If you find yourself in a place where you didn't account for the total cost to you of the project, that's a red flag for you, because it can harm your business in the long run. You got the contract, but this contract is painful to execute. You didn't account for perhaps the delivery costs, the insurance, to your point, the cost of bonding. Smaller businesses need, all businesses do, but it impacts smaller businesses greater when they don't have, good cash flow. And you didn't account for some contingency issues. We build into a lot of the contracts, or in the solicitations, contingency, because we know, depending on the nature of what we're buying, that there could be some unforeseen things that come up, and we want to make sure we draw your attention to it. All of these can be red flags for you. Red flags for the result. The result is you failed to make a profit. That's a red flag for sure. You didn't pay your suppliers, which is a death sentence for a business, especially a small business, because when you don't pay them once, they'll think you're not going to pay them again, and they'll stop supplying to you. You failed to pay your subcontractors, same thing. You didn't pay them once, they'll think you won't pay again, and they won't work for you anymore. And then the last red flag is that you failed to perform. So you want to make sure that you look at all of those things. You look at the quality, the schedule, the specifications, all of that, and make sure that it's the right fit for you, and that you're not going to find yourself in a place where you've got some of these problems on the back end. I want to talk a little bit about protest procedures. You've done everything correctly. You've submitted the offer. You feel like you did everything just right. You complied with all of the specifications and detailed, your response the way that the solicitation called for, and you still didn't win, and you ask to come in and take a look at those responses. When you look at them, you feel that you've been aggrieved, that you did everything right, and you did it actually more consistent with the specifications and with the solicitation than the winner did. So you may decide then that you want to protest that award. The protest has to be filed within 10 days of the award, and it's the notice of intent to award. Except in cases where it's in the best interest of Metro. So the way that the code reads is that if you protest an award, if I and the head of the procuring department put our heads together and we say there's just no way that we cannot continue on with this because it's going to be a problem for Metro if we don't move forward with an award, the award is stayed except for in those conditions. So we may be procuring something that is of such a nature that we've got to get it done because it may affect, the welfare of the citizens of Davidson County. It could be anything.
Unless those kinds of situations occur, we're going to have to stay the award, which means everything stops until we get this protest resolved. The basis for protests are generally procedural, which means we didn't do something consistent with the solicitation like we said we would. And the purchasing agent has the authority to hear and deliver a decision to the protest. So I told somebody yesterday, it's feast or famine. We went through and we were managing awards, getting everything done, probably for about a month and a half, 2 months, nothing. No protest. I mean, we're awarding things like this. Then within a matter of 4 days, we got 3 protests. So, those protests come through, we hear them, we hear what that vendor, has to say and how they feel they've been aggrieved. We listen to those specific items and understand them in the context of the code and of the regulations and the solicitation. And if we feel that, yep, they've got a basis, they didn't do something quite right, then what I will say is we're going to start this thing again, or if it's an RFP, we may remand it back to the evaluation committee. We try to make it right and consistent with the authority that's granted by the code and the regs, and based on what we said we would do in the solicitation. If I hear the protest and I think, yep, we did everything like we were supposed to, you don't really have a case, I deny your protest, you then have the ability to appeal within 7 days of that decision to the Procurement Appeals Board. And the Procurement Appeals Board is chaired by the Director of Finance. That appeal has to be delivered either via U.S. mail or hand-delivered to the Office of the Finance Director and to the purchasing agent, stating very clearly that it's a notice of appeal. All of those hearings and meetings of the Procurement Appeals Board are going to be, provided with public notice as required by the procurement regs and their procurement code, and they're open to the public. And a written decision of that hearing will be mailed to or provided to all interested or affected parties by the Procurement Appeals Board. Typically what they're looking at is whether or not the decision that I made in your protest was a correct decision. Did I fail to comply with the code and the regs in that decision? So they're not so much looking at the merit of your protest, though to some degree they almost get into the merit of it by ensuring that I comply with the code and regs in the decision. So you have some options. If you don't think something was done quite right, you can protest it to me. If you don't like what I say, you can then appeal it to another formal board who can hear your protest or hear your appeal. Okay, so there's 6 key takeaways that I'd like to leave you with as we wind down, because I know that we're close to the end of our time. 1, have a business plan or a strategy when you're seeking to respond to something for Metro. I can't say this enough, and you're going to laugh because I am going to say it a lot. Make sure that you read the solicitation. You would be surprised how many times we've asked for something very specific and folks really kind of fail to read the solicitation. Ask, again, do my business objectives align with those that Metro's seeking, what Metro's business objectives are as they've stated them in the solicitation? Takeaway number 2, read the solicitation. Make sure that you understand what type of solicitation it is. Is it an ITB, an RFP, whatever? Make sure you read the solicitation document. Ask again, do my business objectives align with Metro? That's important because it can come across very clearly that you're putting together a response for the purpose of trying to win business, but it is not really part of how you do business. Takeaway number 3, what are the specifications? Do you understand those? Can you deliver? What is the schedule, quality that's expected? Do you have the capacity to do the work? And how is this going to impact the reputation of your business now and in the future? Those are all important things. Nothing like getting a contract and having to say, I can't perform it. Takeaway number 4, make sure you read the solicitation, under-promise, over-deliver, and submit a closeout report. That's a good, again, customer service tool and tactic. Number 5, I know y'all tired of hearing me say this, but read the solicitation. Make sure you understand what Metro's objective is. Make sure that you understand iProcurement. And I want to say this just really quickly. We normally have a session or a portion in here that is specific to iProcurement, but we're squeezing all of this into a period. If you want to know more about how iProcurement works, feel free to contact our office and we'll talk you through it. The worst thing that can happen to you is you've never touched iProcurement before. You're getting ready to submit an offer to Metro, and this is the first time you're going in and kind of playing with iProcurement. It can be a problem. So make sure that you get familiar with iProcurement, start early. You can create drafts inside the system. We do procure using an electronic procurement system. You can create drafts and go back to it. You know, you can do it at home in your fuzzy bunny slippers. You know, you don't have to go out and get all these glossy deals to submit to Metro. So make sure you get familiar with iProcurement. Make sure you account for all of your costs and provide a value-added solution that generates profit for you. We want you to do business with Metro, but we don't want you to go out of business doing business with Metro because you didn't bid appropriately.
I just want to, you keep joking about the solicitation.
I'm not joking.
But I had an employee that didn't read, and we won a bid, and he quoted the product, but shipping was supposed to be included, and he didn't catch that. So now.
So you got to eat the cost for shipping.
Yeah, so we're honoring the contract, but we're buying product from another country and having to deliver it to this, and we're having to eat the shipping.
Yeah, that's important.
Yep.
Takeaway number 6, make sure you manage your performance on the project, work to provide solutions. You know, it's a partnership. You know, if we're working through something and there's a hiccup and a glitch that comes, what can you do to show your partnership with Metro? Work to provide a solution for things that do pop up that way. Communicate with everyone, being very communicative. You know, for me, you can't be over communicative, but I'm loquacious. What can I say? I talk a lot. But, you know, be communicative, and it's better for everybody to know exactly what we're working with than to not. Perform value-added work so that you can show the value that you bring, because guess what? You're going to perform on this contract, and somewhere down the line, you want Metro to be a reference for you for other work that you want to get. And read the next solicitation, too. Thank you. Don't forget, if you have any questions, please complete the questions and comment card and get it to the back, please. Thank you.